The air crackled with anticipation, a palpable energy that seemed to buzz around them.
Four friends, Liam, Emily, Noah and Julie, huddled around a flickering campfire, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. They were on the precipice of an adventure, a daring exploration into the heart of Blackwood Forest, a place that had always intrigued them. This wasn't just any forest, it was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a place that held a certain mystique and danger, a place where legends were born and nightmares roamed, where the line between reality and myth blurred. Blackwood was infamous for unexplained disappearances, stories of people who ventured in and never returned, its depths holding secrets that time itself seemed determined to bury, secrets that beckoned to those brave enough to seek them out. The friends, young and hungry for adventure, had always been drawn to the allure of the unknown, the thrill of discovering something new. Blackwood, with its ominous reputation, was a challenge they couldn't resist, a test of their mettle and their friendship. It all started with an invitation, an unsigned postcard depicting a shadowy silhouette of the forest, arriving mysteriously in their mailbox. The message was simple, etched in elegant calligraphy. Blackwood awaits. It was an invitation they couldn't ignore.
The friends had laughed it off at first, dismissing it as a prank, a joke played by someone who knew of their adventurous spirits. But the card had a strange allure, a magnetic pull that drew their eyes back to it again and again, as if it held some kind of power over them. The more they talked about it, the more the idea of exploring Blackwood took root in their minds, growing from a mere curiosity to an obsession. It became a challenge, a test of their courage and their bond, something they felt compelled to do, not just for the thrill, but to prove something to themselves.
They convinced themselves it would be the adventure of a lifetime, a story they would tell for years to come, a tale of bravery and camaraderie. Around the campfire they shared stories of past adventures, each tale fueling their excitement and determination to face Blackwood. And so, with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, they packed their bags, each item carefully chosen for the journey ahead. They set off into the unknown, their hearts pounding with anticipation, ready to face whatever Blackwood had in store for them. The forest welcomed them with an unnerving silence. Gone were the cheerful chirps of birds, the rustling of leaves in the wind. Even the air hung heavy, thick with an oppressive sense of dread. As they ventured deeper, the trees seemed to press closer, their branches intertwining overhead to form a suffocating canopy. The sunlight, once bright and cheerful, struggled to penetrate the dense foliage. The forest floor was a tapestry of shadows, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. It was as if the forest itself were holding its breath, watching their every move.
"Do you ever feel like we're being watched?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible above the crunch of leaves beneath their feet.
Liam, ever the pragmatist, dismissed her concerns. "It's just the woods, Em. Nothing to be scared of." But even he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. The wind picked up, swirling around them like an unseen entity. It carried with it a low, mournful whisper, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the forest. The friends exchanged uneasy glances. The invitation had promised adventure, but this felt different. This felt sinister. Hours turned into days as the friends ventured deeper into Blackwood's labyrinthine embrace. The forest seemed to twist and turn upon itself, the paths they swore they had passed before leading them back to where they started. It was as if the forest itself were toying with them, disorienting them, herding them towards some unknown destination. They stumbled upon a path, barely visible beneath a carpet of fallen leaves. It was narrow and overgrown, as if it had been untouched for decades. Curiosity, or perhaps a strange sense of compulsion, drew them towards it. Liam, ever the leader, pushed aside a tangle of branches, revealing a path that disappeared into the gloom.
"Think anyone's been down here in a while?" Noah asked, his voice tinged with apprehension.
"Doesn't look like it," Julie replied, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. but something tells me we're supposed to find out.
The path led them deeper into the heart of the forest, the air growing colder and more oppressive with every step. The trees here were older, more gnarled, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe and contort in the fading light. The forest had taken on a surreal, almost nightmarish quality, as if they had stepped into a forgotten fairy tale. They emerged from the path into a small clearing, a sanctuary of sorts amidst the oppressive gloom of the forest. The sunlight filtered through the dense canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. It was a rare moment of brightness in an otherwise dark and foreboding landscape. In the center stood a dilapidated cabin, its wooden walls blackened with age and decay. The structure seemed to sag under the weight of time, its roof partially caved in and covered in moss. The once sturdy logs were now brittle and splintered, telling tales of countless seasons endured. The windows were boarded up, the door hanging precariously from its hinges. Each creak of the wood seemed to echo the whispers of the past, stories of those who had once sought refuge within its walls. The boards on the windows were weathered and cracked, barely holding together. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie, and yet there was a strange sense of peace about the place. The juxtaposition of the eerie cabin against the serene clearing created an unsettling harmony. Birds chirped in the distance, their songs a stark contrast to the silent, looming presence of the cabin. "Well, this is creepy," Noah muttered, his eyes darting nervously around the clearing. He could feel the weight of the forest pressing in on him, every rustle of leaves making his heart race. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. "Let's just take a look around," Liam said, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. He tried to sound confident, but the quiver in his voice gave him away. They both knew that this was no ordinary cabin, and the invitation they had received was shrouded in mystery. "See if we can find out who sent that invitation." The letter had been cryptic, with no return address and only a few words scrawled in an elegant old-fashioned script. It had led them here to this forgotten corner of the world, and now they had to uncover its secrets. The cabin's interior was dark and dusty, the air thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Every step they took stirred up clouds of dust, making them cough and squint. The walls were lined with old peeling wallpaper, and the floorboards creaked ominously underfoot. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the furniture was rotting and dilapidated. The once cosy armchairs were now nothing more than skeletons of their former selves, their fabric torn and stuffing spilling out. A large wooden table in the center of the room was covered in a thick layer of dust. It was clear that no one had set foot in the cabin for years, perhaps decades. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old wood. It felt as if time had stopped within these walls, preserving the last moments of its previous inhabitants. Yet there was a sense that someone, or something, had been there recently. The air was charged with an inexplicable energy, as if the cabin itself was aware of their presence. They could feel eyes on them, though they saw no one. The fireplace was cold, but the ashes looked disturbed, as if a fire had been lit recently. The remnants of charred wood and faint traces of smoke suggested that someone had been here not too long ago. It was a chilling realization, adding to the growing sense of unease. On the mantelpiece they found a single object, a silver-backed hairbrush, its bristles still clinging to strands of long, dark hair. The hair was fresh, not brittle with age, indicating that it had been used recently. It was a personal item, left behind deliberately, perhaps as a message or a warning. It was a chilling reminder that they were not alone in the forest. The hairbrush was a tangible connection to whoever had been there before them, a silent witness to the cabin's secrets. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees whispering their own stories of the past. Julie wandered into a small side room, her footsteps echoing softly against the wooden floorboards. The air was thick with dust, and the dim light barely illuminated the space. She was drawn by a glint of light reflecting off a dusty surface, a faint shimmer that seemed almost out of place in the otherwise dark and neglected room. The room was bare except for a single piece of furniture, a solitary presence in the midst of emptiness. It was a vanity table draped in a moth-eaten velvet cloth, its once rich fabric now faded and tattered. Sitting atop the table was an ornate, silver-framed mirror, its intricate design still visible despite the tarnish that had settled over the years. The surface of the mirror was tarnished with age, the silver backing peeling away in places, giving it a ghostly appearance. As Julie approached, she noticed something strange about her reflection. It wasn't her, or rather, it was her, but not as she was now. Her reflection was older, her hair streaked with grey, and her skin marked by the passage of time. Her face was etched with worry lines, deep creases that spoke of years of hardship and sorrow, and her eyes, once bright and full of life, were now filled with a deep, abiding fear, a fear that seemed to reach out and grip Julie's heart. It was a fleeting glimpse, gone as quickly as it appeared, but it was enough to send a shiver down Julie's spine, a cold dread that settled in her bones. She shivered involuntarily, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps as she tried to make sense of what she had seen.
Guys, there's something weird about this mirror. You have to see this.
She called out, her voice trembling slightly, the fear still evident in her tone. Liam, Emily and Noah rushed into the room, their faces etched with concern and curiosity. They exchanged worried glances, sensing the urgency in Julie's voice.
"What is it, Julie? What's wrong?" Liam asked, his brow furrowed with worry.
Emily placed a comforting hand on Julie's arm, trying to calm her down. Julie pointed at the mirror, but her reflection was gone. In its place was her own, young and carefree, as if nothing had ever been amiss. The mirror now showed her as she was, a young woman with no signs of the fear and worry she had just seen.
I saw an older version of myself. She looked terrified. Julie's voice was barely above a whisper, the shock still evident in her eyes.
The others exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing with possibilities. They had all felt it, the oppressive atmosphere of the forest, the sense that something was watching them. The forest around them had always felt eerie, with its dense, dark foliage and the heavy fog that seemed to cling to the ground. There was always a sense that they were not alone, that unseen eyes were watching their every move. But this was different. This was tangible proof that something was amiss, something beyond their understanding. They had stumbled upon something unsettling, something that defied explanation, and as they stood there staring at the mirror, they couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change forever.